more on Halo Talks NYC. I have the pleasure of having Julian Barnes with me today, who we've been operating in concentric circles in New York City in the fitness industry for over 20 years, a graduate of Tufts University. Welcome to the show.
Good morning, Pete. Thanks for having me.
Sure. So Julian's got a great background. Went to Tufts with Kerry Glassman, who's one of our portfolio company CEOs, and then got a law degree at UNC. And then why don't you pick it up from there and talk about how you're helping make sure entrepreneurs in the Halo sector are going to become successful businesses? Well,
let's go back before Tufts and before UNC. I was a competitive tennis player as a kid, first sport, and my mother was the chairwoman of the board of the YWCA in White Plains in the 80s.
Oh, wow.
My father was one of the executives working at ABC who helped buy ESPN. So that saying that the apple doesn't fall far from the tree?
Sure.
I had no choice but to get into a media-based business involving physical fitness because that's what both my parents do collectively.
Gotcha.
So when I left Chapel Hill, when I was at Chapel Hill, I got certified as a tennis instructor. That's important because when I got to New York and I'm practicing corporate law at Merrill Lynch and Cadwalader for a couple of years, I got recruited by the United States Tennis Association to join some of their national committees, including their investment committee from 2002 to 2006, managing their portfolio. So then I also got recruited by New York University to develop their first Institute in Entrepreneurship and Small Business Management back in 2003. Then I started a business development company working with a lot of small businesses in New York City, and I decided I want to get back into the wellness space. And so I became the director of marketing for Velocity Sports Performance up on 58th Street Park and Lex. So that was mid-2008, 2009, and I realized there was a much bigger opportunity than working with one operating company. I wanted to create a platform to work with a much larger number of operators and help them do their jobs better. Fast forward, before you know it, I'm producing over 100 wellness networking events throughout New York City for fitness and wellness professionals from 2012 to 2017. And during that time, I had the opportunity of attending most of the major trade shows, IRSA, IDEA, Club Industry, ECA in New York City, STW. I was a presenter at ECA. And what I realized, two things were happening. As I'm talking to a lot of those networking events I mentioned, were almost always held at boutique studios. Yoga studios hosted us. Pilates studios hosted us. So for the last 4 or 5 years, I've been talking to studio owners, just general chit-chat as I'm going in and out of our networking events. And I'm attending these national trade shows, and it all started coming together. There was something missing. There was no organization that was producing business management educational conferences on the East Coast that were easily accessible for the fastest growing segment of the fitness community. According to IRSA, boutique studios are now 45% of the segment. So my business partner, NT eTuck, and I recognized there was an opportunity to produce something called the Boutique Fitness Summit, which is what we did last year, the first two ever in New York and DC. And the focus of the summit is to provide proven business solutions to studio owners and operators in a one-day intensive format, focusing on operators on the East Coast. And we think that's critically important because the 3-day events on the West Coast are not really practical for most of the owners and operators in the boutique space who tend to be, MindBody says 75% of their members are women. That's consistent with my experience with studios that don't use MindBody. So if you have an audience of 75% women and more than half of them are moms, and most of them are running independent studios, they're going to take 3 days off and fly out to the West Coast?
Seems like they're not making it to IRSA in San Diego this year.
They're probably not. So that's why it was important for us to do something on the East Coast. So when we were in New York last year, we marketed throughout the tri-state area, and yet we had people from 10 different states and 3 countries. Three women from Brazil flew in to New York for our inaugural event. So by being in New York, we can take care of the Northeast, make it easy for people to get to in one day, and then get home and get back to their families, get back to their studios. Our second event was in DC, And we have people coming from as far away as California and Chicago and Texas and Florida for the DC Summit. And this year, we'll produce 3 summits in New York, DC, and Chicago, but they're all one-day summits, which again makes it an intense environment, makes it easy for people to get to. We're not asking people to take off more than a day from their family and from their studios, and that means we have a different audience of people coming to our summits than the people who typically attend the larger trade shows.
So that's great, and there's definitely a void in the market, and I think a lot of studio operators need to get outside of their studio to actually take a look around and see what's going on, and also understand best practices. And historically, in other industries, there's a lot of education, there's a lot of training. When I was at Chase Manhattan Bank, we had a 14-week training program before you could actually, work on any deals. Going to get an MBA or going to get a law degree, you've got a lot of case studies and you're learning. And I feel like this industry, they hire someone and they kind of throw them right into the fire and think it's like an apprenticeship business. And the reality is there's a lot of work that you can do on a continuing education basis, as well as kind of prepping yourself. And that's some of the things that we're doing. But I do think that there's a lot for people to learn by understanding who the best in class vendors are, how to run these businesses. And if you're an entrepreneur, it's you kind of live on a very lonely island. So I think part of it might be also like a
community
pep up and, community and almost like group therapy to make sure like, hey, you're still winning.
Absolutely.
And you might not know it, but you're making progress. So as you think about some of the clients that you've had over the years, and you think about what people are taking away from the networking events, what do you see as like the top 3 flaws or things that people need to work on that they're not focused on, running whether it's a 1 or 2 or 3 boutique studio? Like what are they typically missing?
Well, I think you said it best, that most of these owners and operators are running 1 or 2 studios at most, and the overwhelming majority of them are running 1. Most of them are teaching too much, which means they're not devoting enough time to thinking about how to run the business, and they're teaching too much out of necessity. So there's a double-edged sword. How do you pull back from being in your business when you really can't afford to hire a general manager to run your business? So that's a challenge that they all face, and it just requires them grinding away. There are no shortcuts. Mm-hmm. You have to clearly identify your brand, what you stand for. So I don't mean your brand identity and your logo. I mean, what makes your studio special, unique, and extraordinary? How is your studio distinct from other studios? One of our presenters coming up at the Boutique Fitness Summit in New York is a woman named Amy Glosser, who's the founder of Byklin. And it's
say again.
She's the founder of a studio called Byklin, Byklyn, like Brooklyn,
okay.
but
Gotcha.
Byklin.
Okay.
And it's about a 7-minute walk from the Barclays Center downtown Brooklyn. And when she first opened up, she was the only studio on the block. Mm-hmm. 2 years later, SOT is on the block, Orangetheory is on the block, and another national chain, I can't think of the name of it. So she's got 3 national competitors on her block. Mm-hmm. Most people would have predicted that she would have gone away. Mm-hmm. She's thriving. Why is she thriving? Because she knows her market. She knows her audience. She knows the people that are going to SOT and to Orangetheory are not the people who are coming to her studio, because she's really clear on who she is, what her message is, what her brand is, and who her people are. So
one of the notes I had down here was to ask you, like, when you go in and assess a location, we kind of say, like, what's your DNA?
Absolutely.
Like, what do you stand for? Why is this different? You see a lot of boutique studios right now going in with 2, 3, 4, 5 different rooms, and they're basically almost creating like a food court. And when they do it under their own brand, the question is like, all right, the idea of going to a boutique studio is because I want a higher end experience. I want an awesome instructor, and I want to be part of this community.
I use the phrase guided instruction.
Guided.
They want guided instruction from someone who knows better than they do about how the body moves. Most of the people who are going to boutique studios are type A personalities who are used to getting what they want when they want it. They're living a world of Uber and Instacart and Fresh Direct.
What else
and
we got?
The meal,
Netflix, maybe.
Right, they're on demand.
Everything's on demand.
So the one thing that they like to do is turn off their brain for that hour of guided instruction, let someone who knows more than they do lead them. And now you combine that with community. My friends are doing it. That's a really powerful thing. That, to me, explains why boutiques are the fastest rising segment of the fitness sector. But back to your original question, what are these studios not doing well? Number one is being really clear about their brand. Number two is managing their staff and their instructors is the number two challenge that studios often share with us. Number one is always marketing, customer acquisition. Number two is managing their staff and instructors. I was at an event 2 days ago hosted by MindBody. They had 100 of their studios at this event, and I was talking to the founder of a cycling studio, and she said her biggest challenge is finding talent, finding and keeping instructors, quality instructors. The number one request I receive from studio owners for the last 3 years is assistance finding general managers. I'm always asked, do you know someone who's a good general manager? Yeah. And so that's a challenge.
So yeah, we're actually looking at a deal right now where there's an entrepreneur who's basically trying to aggregate all of the Division I athletes and having them almost like on a private LinkedIn and connected with companies in the Halo sector, Amazon, Apple, some of the bigger players to try and get those types of type A personalities and those people that are physically fit and that come from a very high-end sports training to come into the sector, because we hear that all the time, and we're helping people on the executive search side, but like there's a huge market for instructors. The one other thing I wanted to ask you about while we're on the subject, and you talked about marketing as the number one issue.
Number one issue.
I've been working in the industry now for 20 years, and the most successful businesses, whether they're boutiques or whether they're health clubs, is always the pre-sale. And Orangetheory has nailed it. Those guys came out of the health club industry, came out of Massage Envy, and you're actually prohibited from opening until you have 300 members ready to be billed, and they spend like $50,000, before they open as a minimum on marketing to get that 300 number. So when you think about someone coming to you and saying, "Hey, I'm going to open up this studio," or "I opened up this studio," and we've been a party and an investor in some of these groups that are spending $200-300 a month on marketing or $500 a month on marketing.
It's not enough.
Yeah, and then you look at like a health club chain and they're spending like $5-10 grand a month, and they realize that that's an investment in their revenue, and it's not an advertising expense. You're not expense. You're not spending. You're investing to make sure you get the revenue. So when you see diagnose a studio like that, and I feel like it's kind of a downward spiral. It's like, okay, I don't have enough members. I don't have the capital, so I'm going to go, start tapping the class pass, and then now my rates are going down. Now I'm fighting against my own membership.
And you're killing your community. Yeah. So the number one, what you're describing is the result of this situation. This industry has probably 3 segments to it. Let's call them 80% of the boutique fitness studios fall into the lifestyle phase. People who do this because they're passionate about fitness and wellness
from an ownership
standpoint.
Right.
They're former trainers, dancers, athletes who had an opportunity to open up a studio. A client said, "If you go out solo, I'll back you."
That's like the easiest way to get capital for most of these studios.
But they're not business people. Typically, they haven't worked in corporate America for 20 years. They're just passionate about helping people live healthy lives. And most of them don't know what they don't know. And they'll tell you 5 or 10 years in that they were stunned with what they didn't know about the business of running a business. So the question about how much are you investing when you're opening up your first studio is largely a function of people not knowing what they should be doing and not properly capitalizing a business before they start.
Right.
And once you start undercapitalized, you're playing catch up the whole way. And a proper capitalization includes a marketing budget for at least 3 months prior to opening and 3 months after you open. And a lot of businesses, again, we're talking about the 80% that are independently owned, the people who are doing this as their passion play, not to build the next Orangetheory. They're spending every dollar they have just to open.
Right. And one of the things I've seen is that in Orangetheory, like, I say this term a lot, like experience is what you get when you don't get what you want. And they like nailed that. And they know how important the pre-sale is, because if you're a franchisee or if you're a business owner and you open and a month later you're starting to do transfers from your personal account into your business account, like you failed, because it's painful and you start to question yourself. You start to lose some of your confidence. You start to lose some of your ability to say, okay, can I make a long-term decision? Because I'm not in it for the long term right now. I'm in it to make sure like I meet payroll this month.
Trying to survive.
Yeah.
The number one suggestion I would share with anyone who is thinking about opening up a studio: save your money before you open a studio. Don't open it before you're ready. And before you're ready means you should have a minimum of 3 months, preferably 6 months of your operating budget in the bank before you open. Mm-hmm. The most successful business owners I've met, small business owners in any industry, are people who self-financed from savings, which require them to be successful at their previous job before they open up their own business. 10, 15 years of savings. Take Kelvin Gary's, the founder of Body Space Fitness, down on 14th Street and in Union Square. Had a chance to interview him about 2 years ago, and he was talking about his story, being a corporate executive, leaving a six-figure job to become a personal trainer at Equinox, then becoming a manager, and his wife looking at him like he's crazy. Mm-hmm. What are you doing? But he's saving, and then when he decided to open up a studio, he had saved and he had savings to invest in opening up a studio, and he is one of the more successful studio owners I know, operating one space. Now he's atypical in this space, right? Which I guess is this other point. He has an MBA, mm-hmm. right? So, and that's unusual. But what everyone can't get an MBA, but everyone can save more than you think you need. Everything's going to cost twice as much as people tell you. It's going to take twice as long. The website's going to take twice as long mm-hmm. to build. The build out of the space is going to take twice as long. So you always need more money than you think you do to start. And it's very difficult to catch up. So if you can start properly capitalized and give yourself 3 months of marketing, you have a chance to be successful.
Yeah, I think a lot of people kind of rush to the entrance of the boutique
because
fitness
it's
industry.
Exciting.
Yeah, but the reality is, I used to live in Manhattan Beach, so like you kind of watch the waves come in, and there's a U2 song, like every breaking wave, what is it? Every breaking wave on the shore tells the next one there'll be one more. So it's like if you don't catch it like in the next 3 months, like wait until you're ready. And then like catch the next fitness wave. But I feel like a lot of people are coming in and saying like, I can do a better job than SoulCycle. Well, like why? One, and like how are you going to do it? And like what makes you unique about it? And also, one of the things that's kind of gotten lost in the translation, I was actually reading this Planet Fitness research report yesterday. And there's a research analyst over at Jefferies, and he said, Planet Fitness is like an Amazon platform. Like it's not a gym. And I'm thinking to myself, like, people go to the gym to get results. Again, I read the entire research report and had not one word about
fitness.
Help people lose weight.
Right.
I'm going after the obesity epidemic. Like, people are, feeling better about themselves. And I'm like, okay, if you want to be like the laundromat of the fitness industry, I get that. But like at the end of the day, people go to these studios because they want to be able to take the shirt off. They want to feel better. They want to have a healthier lifestyle.
As they get older, they want to be able to get down on the floor and play with their kids, with the grandkids, and be able to get up and nothing breaks.
So I feel like in the boutique studio space, a lot of people are having their DNA and their marketing, but at the end of the day, like tell people what happens if you come here 3 or 4 days a week. Like you are going to change your life. You're going to look better. You're going to feel better. And then those people tell their friends, and that kind of creates like this awesome community.
And that's why I go back to guided instruction.
Right.
Boutiques are about guided instruction. So we've talked about the challenges for studios that aren't properly capitalized once they open the doors, but the reality is we have thousands of those studios that have their doors open and they're struggling. So what are we doing about it? Our mission at the Boutique Fitness Summit is to provide proven business methods to those studio owners to help them figure out how to build more efficient businesses, how to build profitable businesses. My personal and my business partners' personal missions is to help people live active, pain-free, pill-free lives. We've chosen not to be in the front lines actually coaching, teaching, training, but rather to be behind the scenes building a support network that connects studio owners and operators with cutting-edge partners. By partners, I mean the service providers, the fit tech companies, the equipment companies. Studio owners need to know who are the best in class of those. That's why we call those companies our partners. And studio owners also need to connect with each other, with other studio owners, and to have access to what we call the iconic industry executives, some of the people who are going to be speaking in New York. We have Amanda Freeman from SLT. We have Kari Sadowitz from Fitting Room. We have Jennifer Manavy from Physique 57, Eric Posner from Swerve. So when you come to the Boutique Fitness Summit, you are learning from some of the most successful people in the industry, how they build their businesses, how they're managing their businesses. You're learning about customer acquisition, customer retention, studio management, staff management. Those are the fundamentals of running a business. So you may not have launched it the way you would have liked or the way that you should have from a textbook standpoint, but that ship has sailed. You're here now, and our thinking is you can't, or a studio owner can't serve its community if it can't stay in business. So our job is to help them stay in business so they can deliver innovative fitness programming to members of their community so their members can be and live the active life you just talked about.
Yeah, one of the interesting parts about going to trade shows, and I was just at a roundtable with Rex Roundtables yesterday, and there was 18 executives, and they all share all of their financial data. And I feel like in this industry, everyone wants everyone else to succeed and understands that, you know, if we can get 50, 60% of the population into all of our locations, it's going to be a gold rush for everyone. In addition to, over the next couple of years, hopefully with our combined efforts, you know, we start getting all these health insurance companies to pay 75% of every time I take a class or pay for my health club membership. So
there's some companies working on that.
It's coming.
There's a company, Gym Farm, working on that. That's a whole nother podcast. I'm going to encourage you, perhaps get those guys in here. They have created a very innovative model that tracks physical activity, and that data is then sent directly to insurance companies and the employers, so the employee can be reimbursed by the employer based upon physical movement, which is different from checking in. Like you can go to Equinox and swipe in and then walk out the door. You don't actually work. But I want to go back.
That was the only holdup, really. Was these insurance companies says, "Well, I can't track if you did it, so I'm not going to pay you." But now that's changed.
So
obviously.
Check out this other company. I want to go back to something you said though, which is this industry is sharing data with each other and everyone wants to support each other. I think that is true, and I think the biggest missed opportunity within this industry is that, and when I say this industry, I'm talking about the boutique fitness sector now. I think, well, that's not true. I think the entire fitness industry is missing this. One of the things I didn't mention in my run-up was that I was also an instructor at the Swedish Institute College of Health Sciences. And I taught the fitness marketing and management class, and I used a textbook written by Stephen Tharrad, who's one of the deans in the fitness management education space. Right. And so there is a chart in his textbook that breaks out the general population into 4 categories. Only 17% of the population are people who love exercising and go to the gym 3 days a week. 17% of the population. By far the largest segment of the population, 67%, according to the textbook, are people who are indifferent believers. They know that living a healthy life is good for them. They just haven't found something that they love enough to dedicate themselves to. 67%. So, in my opinion, the vast majority of owners and operators, from big box to small studios, are spending their time chasing after the same 17%. We, the entire industry, benefits if we figure out a way to go after some of the 67% and get them into your classes. And that requires everybody to, going back to what's your brand, what do you stand for, what makes you special, unique, and extraordinary, how are you delivering superior service, how are you recruiting top talent. All of that could help the entire industry break the public health crisis curve if you can reach into that
Right.
67% of the population.
Yeah, and I think also, in closing here, and it really all goes back to marketing and messaging and results. But, if you put out an ad with, 8 Victoria's Secret models on the front, like, you're not going to get the deconditioned person to walk in there because it's intimidating. So, go after and make it accessible.
Exactly.
And tell people you're going to change their lives.
I belong to a big box in Manhattan, and I never see an overweight person there.
Yeah.
Never. So
I know we got work to do. Well, this podcast has been sponsored by the letter W for winning. So I want to see everybody at the BFS Summit.
April 26th, New York City.
We will be there. We will be moderating an event and a sponsor of this great cause. So come out. We're going to help you win. See you soon. Julian, thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Awesome.